Hey everybody, welcome back to Packaging Innovations, the right direction. I am your host, Cameron Wright. This is podcast number 7 for November 24th, 2013. Today we're going to be talking about 3D printing and bioprinting and how it relates to the medical packaging field. Please feel free to leave your comments below. We'd love to get back and comment back and promote discussion about the topics we discuss in each podcast. For those of you unfamiliar with 3D printers and how they work, essentially the technology uses additive printing processes to build up layer by layer a 3D model from a material of choice, generally some sort of plastic resin. So take this head for instance. A 3D model of the head was created using a modeling software on the computer. That data was then sent digitally to the printer, which then prints off layer by layer that head starting from the bottom up until your head is complete. So as you can see, the applications and the number of uses for this technology are almost limitless. There are some limitations to the technology, as it's difficult to print anything that is super small or anything that is very large. The main reason why 3D printing has gained notoriety as of late is the 3D printing of guns, illegal guns more importantly, as seen in 60 Minutes. And so there are some negative downfalls to using this technology. Now that we have a better understanding of how 3D printers work, it's important now to take the next step in the thought process and think about how this new technology will impact the packaging world, more specifically the medical packaging world. Medical devices will be greatly impacted by the increase in technology in the 3D printers, as devices will be more customizable for patients as well as cheaper due to decreased material and production costs. However, regulations on printing these devices will be increased by the CDRH the more 3D printers are used. Applications already in use today are hearing aids, false teeth, as well as implants such as stents and cartilage rings seen on this slide here. A recent story in the news brings to light questions on how much regulation there is on 3D printers at the moment in time. The story revolves around U of M's Children's Hospital. A young boy, like 6 months old, had a deadly disease in which his airway was collapsed and he was on life support, and they didn't have many ideas on what to do to fix the problem. And one of the solutions that came about was 3D printing a stent which they could implant and open that airway. And with the emergency approval of the FDA, U of M's Children's Hospital was able to print off this 3D stent and implant it into the boy, and it was successful, and thus they became the first hospital in the world to save someone's life with a 3D printed medical device. However, the great question there is, going into the future, how will we be able to regulate and control how hospitals and how companies print off these specialized devices without much oversight? Pictured here is the 3D stent used by the doctors, along with a 3D replica of the boy's airway, in which doctors were able to take MRI scans and sent to the engineers, and they were able to create a 3D printed model of his airways from the MRI scans. In turn, the engineers were able to model and design this stent to open up his airway. Other factors they had to take into account were the material used, as it needed to be compatible with the body to prevent rejection by the body, as well as prevent any type of infection or failure by the stent in the near future. Create a human organ by printing off the cells in a structured way that they grow together. So layer by layer they print off parts of the organ and allow them to grow together. However, it's still at its very infant stages. Scientists are only able to print off simple organs such as skin and small patches of like your heart and muscles. But looking into the future, this idea is absolutely astounding to think about. We could have companies that simply print off human organs for those who are in need of a donor, those who are in need of a new heart, new lungs, new liver. But they're still working out the kinks, and it's obviously an incredibly difficult technology to master and harness. But 10 to 20 years down the line, we could be looking at artificially produced organs. Organovo is a company that is currently working to develop a 3D printer that prints off human organs so that they are able to print off organs and test them against drugs. They're looking to test the safety and efficacy of new drugs entering into the marketplace, and it's a great way for the FDA to kind of control and test these new drugs that are going to market and help expedite the process of new potential life-saving drugs entering the market. Companies to create these life-saving devices and even create organs, how are they going to be regulated? How are we going to be able to account for such variance in design? You could have one hospital make a device one way and a hospital make a device a completely different way. And how much testing will be required in the case of life-saving emergencies? How much lenience will the FDA allow these hospitals to produce these devices? And leaning into the bioprinting of organs is where exactly will the production of these organs take place? Will they be in hospitals where transport is not necessarily an issue, and so there's less packaging accounted for the organs and keeping these organs functioning and alive until they're able to be implanted into patients? The CDHR is definitely going to be on overdrive trying to classify these new devices and regulate these companies and maintain oversight post-production as to how these devices are produced and used to prevent patients from being injured in the long term, to prevent harm going to anybody into the future. Yes, this technology is incredibly promising, but there is also a cause for increased risk to patients as there's less control over what these companies are doing.
And it might be a thing where FDA has to create a new sub group to control these devices and control this production of human organs. And so what we need to start thinking of now is how this will impact packaging going into the future, how we will classify these products, and how they will increase or decrease the amount of packaging used in the medical industry. Hey guys, thanks again for watching this week's podcast. A quick preview of next week's podcast is these cool new designs. This Act mouthwash, which uses a one-way valve for dosing unit, and the hands-free soap sand.
Thanks everybody for watching. Hope you learned something today. Be sure to catch us next week on our next podcast.